I never expected her to remember my name, let alone say it the way she did, like it belonged somewhere familiar. Tuesday nights were my quiet routine. Laundromat on Maple. Same cracked plastic chair. Same machine that rattled too loud on spin. I brought a paperback I never really read and my phone, which stayed face down because there wasn't anyone I was waiting to hear from anyway. I liked places where no one expected anything of me. You could just exist there, counting quarters, folding things back into shape. She was there because her son forgot his gym clothes again. I recognized her before I placed her. That took a second. She stood near the change machine, holding a wire basket against her hip, scanning the rows like she'd lost something more important than socks. Mid-40s, maybe older. Hair pulled back in a loose knot that kept slipping. She wore a cardigan like she'd grabbed it without thinking. "Daniel," she said. I looked up too fast. Almost checked behind me. "Sorry," I said. "Yeah, that's me." She smiled, like she was relieved I hadn't corrected her. "Ethan's friend," she added, as if that explained everything. "Right. Ethan. High school. Long time ago." I nodded. "Hi, Mrs. Calder." "Please don't," she said quickly. "Just Laura." She folded her arms, then unfolded them, then adjusted the basket again. I noticed her hands before I meant to. They were careful hands. The kind that smoothed things flat even when they didn't need to be. She asked if Ethan was still terrible at answering texts. I said yes. She laughed, but quietly, like she didn't want to disturb the dryers. It was an ordinary sound. That was what made it stick. We ended up sitting across from each other, our machines humming in a way that made conversation feel optional. She remembered I'd moved back to town. Asked where I was working. I told her. She nodded, like she'd file it away. That unsettled me more than it should have. There were long pauses that didn't feel awkward. Just space. She folded her son's shirts with the precision of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. I folded mine slower, lining up sleeves, refolding the same hoodie twice. At one point I realized I was matching my movements to hers without meaning to. "So," she said, eyes on the clothes. "You living close by?" "Yeah," I said. "Couple streets over." She hummed, like that made sense. "That's good." "For what?" She didn't say. I thought about my apartment. The quiet when I got home. The way I typed messages and deleted them. How I'd started eating dinner standing up because sitting down alone felt heavier. I didn't tell her any of that. I just nodded. When her dryer buzzed, she startled a little. Then she laughed at herself. I always forget it's loud. She gathered her things, then hesitated. Looked at me, then at her phone. Her thumb hovered, like she was deciding something small that wasn't small. "Ethan's birthday is Friday," she said. "I'm making too much food. If you're around." The sentence trailed off. An invitation shaped like an apology. "Yeah," I said before I'd thought it through. "Sure." She smiled again, softer this time. Wrote something on her phone. My name, I realized. Not Daniel. Just me. Later that night, folding my own clothes at home, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "This is Laura. I'm glad it was you at the laundromat today." I stared at the screen longer than I should have. The room quiet around me, the clothes still warm in my hands. She texted again the next afternoon, like she was following up on a thought she hadn't finished. "Don't feel obligated," she wrote. "But if you're free Friday, come by around 7. I stared at the message while the kettle screamed itself empty on the stove. I'd already said yes. Still, I typed "sounds good" and then erased it. Typed "I'll be there." Erased that too. I settled on "okay. Thanks." It felt safer. Less like I was leaning in. Friday came quietly. No nerves, I told myself. Just dinner at a familiar house. I showed up with a bottle of soda because it felt wrong to bring wine. She opened the door wearing an apron dusted with flour, hair down this time, falling into her face. "Hey," she said, like she'd been expecting me for longer than the last few minutes. The house smelled like roasted vegetables and something sweet. Ethan wasn't home yet. That surprised me. She noticed my glance down the hallway. "He'll be late," she said. "Work thing." She poured tea instead of opening the soda. Chamomile. We sat at the kitchen table while something baked in the oven. The clock ticked too loud. I folded my napkin, unfolded it, then smoothed it flat with my palm. She asked about my job again, then stopped herself. "Sorry, I already asked you that." "It's okay," I said. "I forget things too." That made her smile, but it faded quickly. She wrapped both hands around her mug. "Didn't drink." "I'm still getting used to the quiet," she said, almost to the table. "After the divorce. The house feels big." I nodded. Didn't trust myself to say anything useful. The truth was, I knew that quiet. I lived in it. I let it settle on me every night like dust. She looked up. Do you ever imagine conversations before you have them? The question caught me off guard. Yeah, I said. All the time. With who? I hesitated, then shrugged. People I don't text. She laughed softly, like she understood more than I'd said. Me too. There it was. The thing neither of us named. I noticed then how close our knees were under the table. Not touching, just close enough to register. When the oven timer went off, she jumped again. I swear it gets louder every year. I followed her to the counter, helped carry dishes without being asked. We moved around each other carefully, like learning a new rhythm. At one point she reached past me for a spoon, her arm brushing mine. The contact was brief, accidental, but my body reacted before my mind could catch up. Sorry, she said. It's fine, I said too quickly. Ethan texted that he'd be even later. She sighed, then smiled at me, apologetic. You don't have to stay. I know, I said. I want to. The words sat between us. Honest. Unadorned. She studied my face, not in a way that felt inappropriate, just attentive, like she was listening with her eyes. Then she reached out and straightened the collar of my jacket where it had folded in on itself. There, she said. You always did that. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me and decided not to look away. After that night, she went quiet. Not in a dramatic way, just a thinning. Shorter texts, longer gaps. The kind of distance you can explain if you want to, and still feel anyway. I told myself it was normal. Ethan was busy. She was busy. I kept folding my days into the same shapes. We ran into each other again at the grocery store, of all places. Tuesday evening. Half the shelves picked over. She stood in the tea aisle, holding a box, staring past it like she was trying to remember why she'd come. Hey, I said. She startled, then smiled. Hi. I didn't know you shopped here. I didn't know you did either. She laughed, then stopped herself. Looked around, like the sound might carry. We walked the aisles together without planning to. She picked up things she didn't need. Put them back. I followed, pushing an empty cart because it gave my hands something to do. At the checkout, she paid first, then paused. Do you have a minute? She asked. I made too much soup. I nodded. Again, too fast. Her house felt different this time. Lights lower. Shoes by the door, just hers. Ethan's room dark. She set the soup on the counter, then leaned back against it, crossing her arms. I've been thinking, she said, then stopped. Shook her head. Sorry, that's never a good start. It's okay, I said. She watched me like she was deciding whether to trust the quiet. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. There it was. The pullback. Careful. Measured. I'm not, I said, though I wasn't sure what that meant. She exhaled, relieved or disappointed. I couldn't tell. Good. We ate at the counter instead of the table. Knees close again. Not touching. She talked about work. About how she forgot her lunch most days. I listened, nodded, noticed the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, and then did it again 10 seconds later. Halfway through, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and went still. It's Ethan, she said. He's stopping by. Just to grab something. The air shifted, like a door opening somewhere else in the house. Okay, I said. I should probably. No, she said, then softened it. You don't have to rush. But I stood anyway. Habit. Respect. Something like that. She walked me to the door. Stop there. The soup warm in my stomach. The space between us smaller than it had been all night. I'm glad you came, she said. I need to be careful. I know, I said. Did I? She reached out, then seemed to catch herself, hand hovering near my sleeve. Fingers curled. Uncurled. She smoothed a crease in my jacket instead. Same gesture. Different weight. For a second, neither of us moved. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. Back up. Mine did the opposite. I could feel the almost. The tilt that didn't happen. Ethan's car door slammed outside. She stepped back. The moment snapped clean. Take care, she said. Yeah, I said. I walked out into the evening with the feeling that something had leaned toward me, and then chosen not to fall. It happened on a Sunday, which felt unfair somehow. Sundays were supposed to be quiet by design. I was walking back from the corner store when I saw her on the bench near the small park, the one with the broken light that never quite turned on at dusk. She sat with her coat folded beside her, hands wrapped around a paper cup like she needed the warmth more than the drink. I almost kept walking. She looked up anyway. saw me before I could decide, lifted her hand in a small, unsure wave. Hey, she said. Hey. I sat at the far end of the bench. Space between us. Intentional. The air smelled like wet leaves. Somewhere, a dog barked and then stopped. I didn't know you came here, she said. I didn't know you did either. She smiled faintly. It didn't last. Her eyes stayed on the path in front of us, watching people pass without really seeing them. We sat like that for a minute. 2 cups cooling. A question forming and dissolving over and over in my head. I saw you with someone, I said finally. The words surprised me as much as they did her. She turned, brows lifting just slightly. Did you? Yeah. At the cafe on 3rd. Friday. She nodded once. Slow. That's Mark. From work. Okay. Silence again. Thicker now. She shifted, crossing one leg over the other, then uncrossing it. Her hands kept adjusting the lid of the cup, even though it was already tight. I don't want you to misunderstand, she said. That seems to be a theme, I said, then regretted it. She glanced at me. Not sharp. Just tired. I don't want to hurt anyone. I know. But you look at me like I already have. That landed somewhere deep. I stared at my shoes, the scuffed toe, the way I'd meant to replace them months ago. I don't expect anything, I said. Sometimes it feels like we're having a conversation no one else can hear. She laughed quietly. No humor in it. That's exactly the problem. She leaned back, eyes on the darkening sky. You're Ethan's age, she said. Not accusing. Just factual. I've known you since you were all elbows and noise. And now you sit across from me and listen like you've lived a whole other life. I didn't plan that, I said. I know. Her voice softened. That's what scares me. I turned toward her then. Not close enough to touch. Close enough to feel the heat of her coat through the air. I think about you more than I should, I said. The truth, stripped down. And I don't know what to do with that. She closed her eyes. Just for a second. When she opened them, they were bright, but steady. If I let myself answer that honestly, she said, it would change things I can't put back. The bench creaked as she shifted closer. Not touching. Almost. She looked at me then. Really looked. Like she was memorizing a line she didn't want to cross. Tell me, she asked softly, what do you think would happen if we stopped being careful? After that Sunday, I stopped seeing her. Not abruptly. Not in a way that made sense. Just a series of small absences that stacked up before I noticed the pattern. The bench stayed empty. The grocery store aisles passed without that familiar pause. Her texts, what few there had been, didn't continue. No explanation. No closing sentence. I told myself it was relief. Then I caught myself walking the longer way home, past her street, without admitting why. A week went by, then another. I started coming home later, letting work stretch where it didn't need to, sitting in my car with the engine off because going inside felt like giving up on something unnamed. I imagined her phone lighting up and then going dark again. Imagined her choosing silence with the same care she chose her words. One night, Ethan showed up at my place unannounced. He stood in the doorway, hands in his jacket pockets, looking uncomfortable in a way I didn't recognize. My mom's been weird, he said. I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't trust my face. She's thinking about moving, he added. Closer to my aunt. Says the house is too much. Oh, I said. A word without shape. He shrugged. She does this thing where she decides something all at once and then won't talk about it. I nodded, like this was just information passing through me. After he left, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the floor until the light outside changed. That explained it, I told myself. The distance. The recalibration. It wasn't about me. Except it felt like it was. I drafted a message I didn't send. Deleted it. Wrote another. Hey, haven't seen you around. Just wanted to check in. Too casual. Too familiar. I set the phone down and folded a shirt I'd already folded, smoothing the fabric until the creases disappeared. A few days later, I saw her car in the driveway. Late afternoon. I slowed, then kept walking. Something stubborn held me in place a block away, watching the front door like it might open if I waited long enough. It didn't. That night, I went to the cafe on 3rd without planning to. Sat at a corner table. Ordered tea I didn't want. The bench by the window stayed empty. A woman laughed too loudly at the next table. Someone's phone rang and rang. I imagined her there with Mark. Or alone. Or packing boxes in the quiet of her house, deciding what to take and what to leave behind. I imagined her choosing the version of herself that didn't ask dangerous questions on park benches. When I got up to leave, I noticed the chair across from me hadn't been touched, still perfectly aligned with the table. Waiting, in a way chairs don't usually wait. I walked home in the dark, phone heavy in my pocket. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. She knocked on my door on a Thursday evening, the kind that feels unfinished even before it starts. I knew it was her before I opened it. The knock had weight to it. Careful. Measured. I stood there longer than I should have, hand on the knob, feeling my chest tighten like I'd been holding something in for weeks, and it finally noticed. When I opened the door, she stood a step back, coat zipped, hair pulled up again. She looked tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Neither of us moved. The hallway light flickered once, then steadied. "I won't stay long," she said, as if she'd practiced that line. "Okay." She glanced past me, into my apartment. The couch, the stack of mail, the shoes by the door, like she was placing me somewhere real again. "I didn't mean to disappear," she said. When I don't know what to do, I stop doing everything." I nodded. That sounded familiar. "I'm thinking about selling the house," she went on, moving closer to my sister. "Ethan thinks it's sudden. It's not. It's just overdue." I waited. Let the silence do what it needed to do. "I didn't come here to make this harder," she said. "I came because it already was." I stepped aside. "Do you want some tea?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah." We stood in my kitchen, smaller than hers, quieter somehow. The kettle took too long to boil. She leaned against the counter, hands folded, then unfolded, then tucked into her sleeves. "I need to say this once," she said, "and then I need to leave it alone." I turned to face her. "Not close. Close enough." "I care about you," she said. "More than is appropriate. More than is simple. And I've been pretending that if I don't touch it, it won't change shape." My throat tightened. "It already has." She smiled at that. Small. Sad. Honest. "Yes." I thought about all the things I'd rehearsed saying. None of them fit. "I don't want to be something you regret," I said. "You wouldn't be," she said immediately. Then softer. "But I might regret myself." The kettle clicked off. Neither of us moved to pour. "I'm choosing to step back," she said. "Not because this isn't real. Because it is." I nodded. It felt like swallowing something sharp. "Okay." She looked relieved. And wrecked. Both at once. She reached out then, just barely, and rested her hand on my arm. No slide. No squeeze. Just contact. Warm. Grounding. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For letting this be what it is." I walked her to the door. She paused there, fingers brushing the frame, then looked up at me. "Take care," she said. "You too." She smiled once more. Steady this time. Then she left. I closed the door gently, like anything louder would break what we'd just kept intact. Time did what it always does. It kept going, even when I didn't know how to. Winter loosened its grip. The park bench got fixed. The light finally worked, casting a steady glow instead of that half-dark we'd once shared. I noticed things like that now. Small repairs. Quiet continuations. I started going to the cafe on 3rd again. Not every day. Just enough that the barista stopped asking my name. I drank black coffee in the mornings, tea in the afternoons, like I was learning how to want different things at different times. At 8:47 a.m., the place always felt suspended. Too early for conversations, too late for excuses. I liked that hour. She showed up one morning in March. No announcement. No hesitation. Just her, standing near the counter, scanning the chalkboard menu like it had changed overnight. Her hair was shorter. Not dramatically. Just enough to signal a decision made and followed through. I didn't wave. Didn't rush. I waited for her to notice me the way you notice something familiar and unexpected at the same time. She smiled when she did. Real. Unarmored. "Hi," she said. "Hi." She ordered tea. Chamomile. Sat across from me without asking. We talked about nothing important. Ethan's new place, my job, how the cafe still burned the toast. The conversation moved easily, like it had been waiting for us to stop being careful with it. She told me she didn't sell the house. Not yet. She told me she started saying what she meant more often, even when her voice shook. I told her I stopped imagining conversations so much. Started having them instead. We didn't touch. Not then. It became a rhythm. Coffee. Walks. The park bench, now brighter than before. Sometimes silence. Sometimes laughter that surprised us both. No labels. No rewrites of the past. Just presence. One evening, months later, I found myself back in her kitchen. Smaller changes now, a new kettle, different curtains. The clock still ticked too loud. She poured tea. I leaned against the counter the way she used to. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, and meant it. She reached for a mug, and our fingers brushed. This time, neither of us pulled away. It wasn't electric. It was steady, like something finally landing where it belonged. Do you ever think about that night? She asked. When we decided not to. All the time, I said. She smiled. Me too. We stood there, close enough to feel the warmth we'd learned how to earn. When she rested her head against my shoulder, it felt less like a beginning and more like an arrival. No rush. No fear of what it meant. Later, we sat on the couch, legs touching, a shared blanket we didn't comment on. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere, someone laughed. Life, continuing. I realized then that love didn't have to announce itself. Sometimes it just showed up, quietly, after you'd done the work of letting it. She squeezed my hand once. I squeezed back. And that was enough. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?